Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It is my sincere joy and honor to be able to welcome you to the Digital Ministry Service Support Network from the Southern California Conference. We're so excited that you're joining us. Whether you're watching live on Facebook or whether you're watching later, please know that we're here to support one another. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments below. We'd be happy to get to them. Again, whether you're watching live or watching later, we do comment on these, and we're trying to get you and to support one another as best we can. And the way we do that is to engage. So we invite you to continue to post and to engage, ask questions, even share some of the topics that might be helpful for you to learn about. If there's some things that you might need help with, this is a growing network of ministry practitioners that are supporting one another with some of the best digital practices so that we can improve our online engagement and expand our digital content. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I just wanted to point you to this link that's right here. It's a QR code that can take you to a directory of some of the other excellent topics and presenters who have shared with us some of the latest and most helpful resources that exist out there and practices so that we can continue to develop content, care, and connection to in our ministries. And so thank you so much for being with us today. It is my sincere joy to be able to share with you some helpful practices on how to develop online prayer communities, how to develop online prayer communities in a day and age where there's a resurgence in prayer. You know, COVID has certainly been a traumatic experience for many, and isolation has certainly led to many feelings of anxiety and depression and some uncertainty about the future. And so people are being drawn to prayer, and we're seeing that some of our online ministries are being visited and frequented by people that we had no interaction with. So there's a resurgence of trying to kind of get connected. And one of the top ways that people are trying to get connected is through a prayer. In fact, studies show that some of the best and highest search terms right now are prayer. And so if people are seeking to find ways to connect through prayer, and if our churches are still not open or starting to become open, or if people just don't have access to where churches might be, then it becomes essential for us to be able to find ways to connect with people who are open to praying or open to becoming part of a praying support network. So that's what I want to talk to you about today, because I certainly want us to get to a point where we could figure out and start thinking through what are some ways that we can develop digital communities, and in particular prayer communities online, and how can we integrate those with some of the prayer ministries that we have in our churches. But before we do that, I wanted to share with you today we're going to start with a quiz. Okay, we're going to ask a couple of questions and see if we know. I'm going to share with you on my screen, I'm going to share with you a study that was done by Stanford University. Just a few years ago, Stanford University followed up a study that they had done in 1995. In 1995, they did a study on how couples meet. How do couples meet? And this is kind of a quiz because and that's why you're seeing here a blank screen on one side. And I just wanted to show you to start. In 1995, what was the top way that couples who got married met? Okay, so according to Stanford University, 33% of couples met through friends. So sometimes you know how it is in life. You know somebody, and you know this other person who they might make a good match, and so you kind of get them together, or you make an introduction, or you have a dinner, and they're over, and so that's how they meet, and eventually sparks fly, and eventually they get married. So the top way up until 1995 or so was meeting through friends. Of course, some people meet at a restaurant or at a bar. Some people meet at work. About 19% of people meet at work. Also, about 19% of people meet at a college or a university. If you can think about when you were growing up, and your parents told you about how they met, it's probably they met at a cafeteria or in a class when they were in school together. And certainly in 1995, about close to 20% of people were meeting that way. And then 50% said through family. That's how they met. Now, as you know, technology has dramatically changed the way that we connect and interact with each other, and even the way that we're meeting people. I want to show you that this study by Stanford University was updated just a couple years ago in 2017, and this is what they found. The top way that people are meeting nowadays is 39% online. Now think about that. The dramatic change that took place from 2017, from 1995 to 2017, and how people actually meet through online skyrocketed from 2% in 1995 to 39% of people who end up getting married have met online. And the ways that we used to meet people through friends and family has dropped from 33% to 20%. And practically every other way that we have been meeting people and getting married eventually has dropped, except for two of those ways. One is at a restaurant or a bar, and the top way by far is online. So what does this study tell us? Well, I think it's confirming what most of us already know. It's confirming that the way that we connect with each other has irreversibly been changed through social media and technology. Nowadays, we are connecting with each other and engaging in the world digitally. And maybe that's the reason why you're logging on to these talks that we're having every Tuesday at 1 p.m. is so that you can try to figure out how to best do that in your church. But I think that's a reminder that tells us that the way that we are engaging with each other is growing more and more dependent on digital technologies. If you think about it, our world has changed in many other ways. You know that today you can open up a bank account from your smartphone. All you have to do is open it up, go to the right place, and open up a bank account. It used to be unheard of that you could actually open up a bank account without having to go to the bank, fill out all this paperwork with just the right pen. You know, those pens that they have nailed down to the counter. It's a ballpoint pen, and you know they always wanted to make sure that you filled out the application by hand with the right tool and in just the right way, and you had to be there to present all of your information and your identification. Gone are the days when that is absolutely necessary. Today we are engaging with the world in a completely new way. Same thing for opening up or applying for a loan. You can apply for a home loan exclusively on your iPhone or on your smartphone, and you don't need to go through these lengthy, paperwork and all that stuff. It's all done online. You can actually, as you know, browse for a car, look at all the different reviews. You can buy a car from your smartphone that is delivered directly to your door, and you don't have to go anywhere. Just a few years ago, that was unheard of. Like, everyone knew if you needed to buy a car, you had to devote an entire Sunday of haggling with the car salesman, and just a stressful situation, and you had to endure this rite of passage just to earn the right to drive a brand new car, right? Gone are those days. You can just do it from your cell phone. So you see, technology has irreversibly changed the way that we engage with the world, that we purchase things, and that we connect with each other. And that's why it becomes important for us to begin to consider ways in which we can extend our ministries digitally in a way that we can begin to engage with our audience more and more. So how can this happen? How is it that we can actually do that? Well, I think we have to be intentional about extending our presence online. I want to tell you one more story before I share with you some resources. The story of one of my favorite places that I used to go to. Okay, I want to tell you about this store called Fry's Electronics. Fry's Electronics was one of my favorite places. You know, being a somewhat of a techie person, I don't know if I'm a tech nerd, but certainly I've always been interested in electronics and trying to find ways how if I wanted to try something out, I go to Fry's Electronics, and they had everything. They had all the technology needs that you can think of. Well, some of you know that after 36 years of being in business, Fry's Electronics is closing its doors to the public. Tragic, right? This place where you used to go and they had these giant spaceships, and then they had these giant Martians, and there was it was a very immersive experience. I used to love to go there, and I'd spend hours in there. And come to find out, recently they announced that Fry's Electronics is going out of business. Can you believe this? And in the digital age, an electronics giant was not able to survive the tech revolution. So we have to ask this question: how is it possible that an electronics store, a future-minded, so to speak, consumer-minded store having to do with equipping people with electronics, did not survive the tech revolution that is happening right now? And if the tech journalists, if you ask them what happened, how is it possible that Fry's Electronics did not survive? Well, one thing they'll tell you is they'll say, well, it's hard to compete with Amazon, right? Amazon is just Amazon, right? It's hard to compete. The problem is that not everybody is failing at competing against Amazon. You think about other companies like Costco. Okay, Costco is a company that's a direct competitor to Amazon. They're doing very well. They're able to compete with them. They sell all kinds of products, including electronics, and they're competing very, very well. They're adjusting to the changes in culture very, very well. You think about Best Buy. Best Buy is almost a mirror reflection of what Fry's Electronics used to be, a giant place where you can go and try out the electronics and check them out and then purchase them and go home. Best Buy is doing very well. They're able to compete with Amazon. I'm sure they felt it, but they're so far so good. They're doing very, very well. How is it possible that a tech giant like Fry's was not able to compete? The journalist will tell us, there's a journalist who was studying this, and he said, it's difficult to compete with Amazon, but please note, there was a long period of time when Fry's Electronics seemed to have absolutely no interest in selling online. What were they saying? And what are they trying to say? They were saying that even though this was a tech giant, that they were exhibiting no interest in developing an online presence. And when they finally did, that presence was not very good. So we see that in this fast-changing culture, a lot of very successful companies are not able to adapt. And they're struggling because they're not willing to put forth the intention and the effort of developing an engaging, interactive, successful online presence. I know when it comes to the issues of the church, as ministry leaders, we're dealing with these issues, we need to begin to we need to continue to be thinking of ways of how we can engage people in the way that society has predisposed them to engage. How can we expand our ministries digitally? How can we provide ways for people to engage with one another in ways that we're used to engaging with them during, say, for instance, in-person worship, or during small group Bible studies, or during some of the vibrant ministries that we have? How can we do that? And in particular, how can we begin to develop opportunities for people to pray? Because this tends to be something that's on a very resurgent theme right now. Recently, there was a study done in the UK that said that there are some churches that are experiencing triple the amount of growth during this pandemic. And as you know, in the UK, it's very secular. but they're finding that there's 2 to 3 times as much people consuming their online ministries than there was before the pandemic. And another interesting research showed that while church people's prayer, their willingness to pray has increased, so has unchurched people's willingness to pray. They did a study that they asked people, do you pray? And even unchurched people who don't go to church, their willingness to pray and they're seeking out, and as I mentioned, some of the search terms, how do I pray? It has become very, very important, and it's something that we're seeing more and more. So one of the things that's kind of surprising to us is, as church people, some of the things that we see on our websites may not necessarily be things that are important to unchurched people and seeking people. You see, for us, sometimes the things that are important to us are, for instance, on our website, and we all have this, right? We have our value statement or our statement of beliefs section. We place a lot of value in what we believe, when in reality, some studies show that people aren't interested in what we believe. They don't even know what they believe. If they're searching, that might be something that they're interested in, but they don't want to compare what you believe versus what they believe. As church people, we tend to think things through in terms of, okay, who are we? What is the Seventh-day Adventist church, and what do we believe? Unchurched people, they don't come looking for that. What we're finding is that people are searching practical Christianity. They're wanting to know, how do I pray? They're wanting to know, is it possible for me to pray without fully believing in God? Can I pray to God if I'm not a church-going person? COVID prayer is another popular search term. So you see, people are, if they have a resurgence and they're searching, they want to connect with a community of faith. They're not going to start with doctrine. They're not going to start necessarily with prophecy, with all the, some of these other conventional ways. They're going to start with the most practical things. How do I pray? How do I read the Bible? Who is God? What is God actually like? These are the kinds of questions that people are asking. So let's think this through. Let's say that we have a group of people. Let's say there's thousands of people that are searching these kinds of questions. The question becomes, what will they find when they come to our church websites or our social media streams? Are they going to find practical ways for them to grow in their faith? Or are they going to find more structured ways and doctrinal statements about what an institution believes? What if we put a little more intention on helping people grow in their spiritual lives? Like, how can we help them understand God better? And how can we help them connect with God? How can we help them pray to God? So I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions of some helpful ways that we can develop prayer communities online and connect those people with praying people that are in person. As things are opening up, our churches are opening up, and we're starting to see people begin to gather a little bit more here in Southern California. We need to prepare to receive people who might be interested. But one of their top needs is going to be, how do I, can I learn a little bit more about who this God is? What is God actually like? And how can I talk to him? How can I connect with him? And so here are some helpful ways that we can do this. And I would say that we would begin by doing this. The number one thing that I think we need to do is develop some place on your website, on your church website or your organization's website, as a simple how-to about prayer. You may post a blog post and say, if you're new to prayer, what if you titled it, if you're new to prayer, click here, or Are you interested in prayer? And so you have a link, and then you lead them through actually how to pray, right? Many times we say, okay, we need to pray, or we're calling prayer for at this time, but we don't actually lead people through on actually how to pray, because that's what they're looking for. Unchurched people are looking for practical ways of praying, okay? And that means literally verbalizing for them what prayer actually looks like. So you may consider a blog post on your website that helps people say, if you're new to prayer, start here. Okay? And what if that was a little more prominent? You don't have to like dig through it on your website. What if it was smack dab in the middle that says, if you're new to prayer, click here. And then once you go there, they can read a blog. Or another thing you can do is you just record a short video that says, if you're new to, thank you so much for joining us. If you're new to prayer, here are some helpful suggestions that I've found about how to pray. And this is what you would do. And so you would either open up a verse in the Bible, you would say a prayer, you would simply lead them through prayer and say, if you're new to prayer, just follow after me. And then begin by saying a phrase and pause, wait for them to say a prayer. And then say another phrase. Ask questions as you go through this prayer. Say, is there something that God is telling you? Is God revealing something for you to do? What are you sensing? Is there a heaviness in you right now? And what do you think that might be? What might be the cause for that? How can God be a source of renewal for you? So just kind of some practical ways of being able to relate to walk them through what a prayer might be like, and have that more prominent on our websites. I think that might be one way or one good place to start. Another place to start might be using social media. So let's talk about how social media can be helpful in leading people to prayer. So let's say you have a social media site for your church. You can say, we're going to be having a Instagram prayer time on Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock or Wednesday at 5 p.m. Join us for an online prayer. You can call it a walkthrough prayer. You can say, whatever you want, right? So let's take, for instance, obviously, Facebook might be one way to do it. Facebook has a Facebook Live feature, as you know. You could wait for that time to come. You can go live and you can lead out a prayer. You can simply say, today, this is Tuesday, 10 o'clock, and today we're going to be praying about, praying certain things, right? And then not just talk about the prayer request, but actually lead them through a prayer. Again, you can say, if you're new to prayer, here's how I would begin. Here's what I would do, right? And then lead them and walk them through a prayer. Another way to do that is to, let's take, for instance, Instagram. Instagram has a live feature as well. So you can do a series of posts. Let's say that you're going to have a prayer time on Friday. And you can do a post every day. Say, Friday prayer time. Join us for a live prayer, right? Tuesday, another post. Friday prayer time at 10 o'clock. Join us for a live prayer. If you have any prayer requests, write them down in the comment section below. Wednesday, again. So you're promoting this, right? So people can kind of see that in multiple times in multiple ways. Friday comes along, and you can go live on Instagram, and you can lead somebody through the process of prayer. You can talk about different kinds of prayers. You can talk about a prayer for help. You can talk about prayer of praise. You can say, today we're going to be focusing on how to praise God through prayer, or how to pray for help. And you hear some helpful verses that have been helpful to me. We're going to ask God to bless us in this way. And you can share with them some helpful Bible verses that have been very, very, very helpful. And so you go live, people will join, or you can record something in your live story that people can find at different times. Maybe not everyone's available at that time. maybe record something on your story. You know how that thing lasts for 24 hours? So you record something, you put there, and you say, well, today I'd like to lead you through a little prayer. And so using Instagram live stories or Facebook live stories to help people walk them through prayer. Now, keep in mind, do something very practical, something that leads them through. We can no longer assume that people know how to pray. Assume that even long-standing church members don't know how to pray. Make that assumption and say, you know what? Let's just go through a prayer. Here's something that's been helpful to me, and this is how I would begin a prayer, and this is what I would do, and this is what I'm looking for. And then make sure you include a prayer, a time of reflection, a time for them to say, okay, is there something here that God is trying to tell me? Do you sense that some circumstance throughout your day that God has been trying to tell you something? Or is God trying to mold you and shape you through some circumstance, and what should your response be? Guide them through this prayer process. I think more and more you're going to find that people need help on learning how to pray. I want to share with you a couple more resources. Some of you might be familiar with the Remind app, okay? Or actually it's a website called remind.com. Remind, just like remember, right? What is Remind app? Remind app is a text feature. In fact, that's a very useful tool that I use to connect with the pastors at the LA Metro region. It's a group text function where I could send out a text. I just send out one text to a group and everyone receives it, but everyone can reply directly to the sender, as opposed to like having 20, 30 people replying back in like what would happen in our phones. If we had a group of people, there's like 20 people on there and everyone's replying back, and then it's hard to tell who you're replying to and all that stuff, right? What Remind does, it allows you to send a text and people can respond to it, but they're responding to the sender and not necessarily to everybody else. Does that make sense? So consider using some kind of a text app or online feature where you begin a prayer ministry with this app, and you can promote this. You can put this on Instagram, you can put it on your website, say if you'd like to join a prayer chat, an online prayer chat, and then you give them the number, or you give them a way for them to register, so they have to register, or you can send them a link. You'll figure out how that happens. The main thing is to set up a network of people who are signed up to pray together. And so when it's time to pray, you send them a verse, you send them a text, you send them an encouragement. They all get it, and they could choose to reply or not. That might be one way to do it. Setting up a network of people that are specifically for prayer is a great way for you to expand your prayer network with people who are interested in that. I want to share with you now a really as we wrap up. I know our time is almost done, but I do want to share with you one resource that I just found out about, and I'm just now starting to get familiar with it. But it's another way for us to be able to help people engage into prayer groups. And this is a resource that is sure to help us develop a prayer network. It's called Prayvine. It's primarily, it was created for missionaries who are abroad to be able to connect with people back home. And the way it works is that you set up a network where you can send out a prayer request, and everyone who you've included in that will receive a notification by email. And that anyone who wants to reply, there'll be a reply prompt where they can just send a prayer or a text or a word of encouragement, and it'll go back to the sender. Now, the beauty about this is they don't have to set up an account. They don't have to set up a password and a verification and all that. Whoever receives that email will be prompted to be able to reply right there in the email, and that will come back to the user. It's a great way for missionaries to connect with people in their support network. Let me show you a quick video Again, this is about, it's primarily for missionaries, but I think it's something that could be useful to create prayer networks. Here it goes.
Meet Rachel. She's a missionary to orphans in Africa. She's passionate about serving the least and the lost. The children adore her. Lives are being transformed. But she faces a problem. Rachel works here. Her supporters are here, on the other side of the planet. And it often feels that way. Rachel's learning a new language and culture. Her work is exhausting. She worries about fundraising. And she feels very alone. In fact, 2 out of 3 mission workers report experiencing moderate to severe depression because of their isolation in the field. Rachel's supporters care, but they're worlds apart. In the busy flood of mailboxes and inboxes, Rachel's newsletters are often lost and left unread. Let's be honest, newsletters are old letters, rarely read letters. Rachel's supporters begin feeling unconnected to her work, and many drift away. As a result, Rachel doesn't get the prayer support she desperately needs to keep going. Mission workers all around the globe face precisely this problem. How do we connect this world with this world? Prayvine delivers a solution. Made by missionaries, for missionaries, and humanitarian workers, Prayvine gathers a secure private prayer community around people like Rachel. She posts requests, updates, and photos, and her supporters respond with written prayers and encouraging notes. Communication flows quickly, easily, and more frequently in both directions. And since her friends, family, and supporters are more connected to her work, they're more likely to continue their support. In fact, studies show that Prayvine increases engagement between mission workers and supporters by up to 20 times. Prayvine costs Rachel nothing, but it means everything. It means she feels supported and encouraged. It means a community of prayer is behind her. It means stronger and more long-lasting support for the kingdom work God's called her to do. That makes Rachel feel loved and energized. And when that happens, Rachel spreads even more joy to those she serves.
Prayvine, prayvine.org. If you're interested in finding a way to develop a network of prayer, of people gathered together where a moderator can send out a prayer request and people can respond to it, I really encourage you to check that out. It's something that I'm checking out. I just sent out the notification to let me join and create one, and I'm going to be testing it out. But I really believe that and other networks out there that can help us gather people around prayer might be an excellent way for us to expand our prayer ministries, to engage with people in a digital way in this fast-paced society where we've already are predisposed to connect with people digitally. Let's expand our ministries digitally in a way that is easy for people to access and to connect with us. Well, Ministry Leader, thank you so much for being willing to join us at this Digital Ministry Support Network. If you have more questions or comments, again, please leave them down below. And thank you so much for your contributions, those of you who have responded. And we just can't wait till we can gather again and share more resources next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Once again, thank you for joining us. God bless you and your ministries, and we're here to help and support one another.